On the second floor of the Demonic Academy's main building, in the infirmary, Academy physician Jong Myeon-beek was writing something when a sudden knock interrupted him. A voice from outside informed him of a patient. Curiously, he asked whose patient it was and, without waiting long, rushed to open the door. Upon seeing the situation, he excitedly inquired about the patient's whereabouts. The guard stood holding Prince Cheon, prompting Dr. Beek to express his surprise. It was the first day at the academy, and yet, there was already a patient. He remarked that it was typical of the Demonic Academy for such things to happen so early. One of the guards looked at him, recalling that Dr. Beek once had a student beat Jongwon. Yet, the way he behaved, it seemed he was completely obsessed with medical practice. Dr. Beek, almost dancing with enthusiasm, approached the guards and told them this wasn't a moment to be happy. He urged them to bring the patient inside quickly. As Dr. Jong examined the unconscious Prince Cheon, he questioned how a test could have left someone in such poor condition. He asked if the boy had been stabbed in the stomach. A guard clarified that it wasn't an external wound, the prince had suffered internal injuries. Shocked, Dr. Jang asked for confirmation and was told the boy had no Nigon. Therefore, the left guardian had requested that he receive special care. Dr. Jang reflected that, in his 10 years of experience, both as a teacher and a student, he had never seen such extensive internal bleeding without an external wound. The guards, having delivered the patient, prepared to leave. One guard noticed his companion staring blankly and asked why he was simply watching. They have work to do. His companion brushed it off, saying it was probably nothing, although he found it odd that the boy suddenly seemed better than before. Dr. Jang checked the prince's pulse while Cheon, trying to open his eyes, recalled that he had forgotten about the infirmary altogether. He realized he had nearly healed all his internal damage, though pain still lingered. He reminded himself to endure it until the doctor was finished. Dr. Beek noted the irregular and rapid pulse, suggesting severe internal damage. He found the situation strange. Such bleeding shouldn't occur even if someone had bitten their tongue. He decided to begin with acupuncture. At that moment, an explosion shook the infirmary, startling Dr. Jang and knocking him off balance. Looking up, he saw Seob Meng standing there, casually sipping alcohol. Meng sarcastically asked why Dr. Jang was in the infirmary, mocking him as the once cowardly student who had now become the academy's doctor. Dr. Jang thought to himself that Meng was still as arrogant as ever. He asked what brought Meng there, noting that, as the right guardian, Meng should not have suffered any injuries. Meng laughed darkly and remarked that Beek didn't seem to appreciate his presence. Dr. Jang chuckled and replied that Meng was, of course, welcome to stay as long as he liked, though he privately admitted he could never truly understand him. Casting a glance toward Prince Cheon, Seob Meng commented on how interesting the boy seemed. Prince Cheon, still pretending to be unconscious, wondered why such a figure had entered the infirmary. He cursed inwardly, suspecting that Seob Meng might have realized he was faking his condition, and found the man's alcohol-laced breath unbearable. Meng then questioned aloud why the boy was pretending to be asleep. Using his power, he levitated Cheon without touching him, causing the prince to sweat from the exertion. Dr. Jang observed the use of energy and acknowledged that Seob Meng was indeed the rightful guardian of the school. He wondered if Meng was using Nigon to lift the boy. Cheon, still unable to move, realized his body hadn't fully recovered. Meng warned him to stop pretending or he'd be struck across the face. Under pressure, Cheon opened his eyes and admitted he had been caught. He asked how Meng had known. Amused, Meng commented on Cheon's audacity and asked how he dared to act so boldly in front of a guardian. Meng explained that any seasoned warrior could tell the difference between sleep and wakefulness based on breathing rhythm. Reflecting on that, Cheon realized his mistake. Meng had picked up on the sound of his breathing. At that moment, the Nano Machine activated and noted that the normal breathing rate for a male aged 15 to 20 was between 12 to 20 breaths per minute, while Cheon's was only about 8, clearly indicating an unnatural state. Cheon, frustrated, thought to himself that such information was unnecessary. Seob Meng laughed again, stating that today's youth lacked guts, but this one was different. He was impressive. Meng suspected he had come because he noticed Cheon was faking his injuries back in the drill hall. He added that kids these days lacked patience and always looked for shortcuts when faced with even minor challenges. Meanwhile, Cheon reflected that he hadn't made it through purely by willpower. Meng acknowledged his determination, but Dr. Zhang interrupted, warning Meng that the patient was in critical condition and treatment should come first. Meng dismissed the comment, saying that the adults were talking. Suddenly, Cheon coughed up blood. Meng observed the boy's pale face and, once again, used his energy. Cheon noticed that he was no longer frozen. Meng then got serious and stated that he would be direct. He wanted to mentor Cheon. He resumed drinking casually. Cheon lay back and asked what Meng's intentions were. Meng clarified that he wanted to teach Cheon his martial arts by taking him on as a student. Cheon, surprised, asked if Meng was unaware of his identity. Meng scoffed and replied that there wasn't a soul in the academy who didn't know who he was. Still wary, Cheon raised concerns about the opposition Meng might face from the 6 clans. Meng found this amusing and dismissed it, saying that clan rivalry would continue with or without the prince. To him, the idea of being forbidden from teaching someone because of political friction was laughable. Cheon considered the offer a remarkable opportunity but questioned whether it was a trap. Dr. Zhang, meanwhile, finally recognized the boy as the notorious 7th prince. He had heard rumors of trickery and manipulation at the demonic academy, but even so, he felt the prince's level of blood loss was excessive to be faked. The offer surprised him, especially considering it was coming from someone of Xiao Meng's stature and that the prince would now have a teacher within the academy. Xiao Meng warned that if Cheon hesitated any longer, it would appear as though he were begging to become Meng's student. Meng could see that the boy was full of doubts, which was only natural given his past. To persuade him, Meng placed a paper near Cheon's head and said that if Cheon wasn't convinced yet, he would make him an offer he couldn't refuse. Curious, Cheon asked what the paper contained. Meng explained that it held exactly what Cheon needed to survive in the demonic academy, especially since he had ended up in the infirmary right after arriving. Meng then questioned whether Cheon wasn't worried about falling behind. He pointed out that, although Cheon passed the first test purely through willpower, he lacked Nigon. How could he possibly survive the second? Xiao Meng emphasized that anyone aspiring to become a warrior must always think ahead of others. He questioned whether Prince Cheon truly intended to stay in the infirmary for 2 full weeks, falling behind right from the beginning. While acknowledging that he himself was also confined, Xiao Meng pointed out that others would undoubtedly make significant progress during that time. Taking a sip of his drink, he silently admitted that he couldn't refute the reality of the situation. Still, he noted that staying in the infirmary temporarily was necessary to avoid raising suspicion. Xiao Meng then asked Prince Cheon if he knew why the red-haired individual had sent him to the infirmary. Prince Cheon responded, suggesting it was likely due to his internal injuries. Xiao Meng confirmed this, stating that those who were injured should indeed be sent to the infirmary. However, he found it odd that the redhead hadn't sent other internally injured children there as well. Xiao Meng explained that most people in Morim could heal internal injuries through meditation, though recovery would be faster with medical treatment or proper medicine. When Prince Cheon asked if that meant the others didn't need help, Xiao Meng clarified that the other children had managed to heal themselves, at least partially. Thus, there was no need to send them to the infirmary. Prince Cheon reflected on this and realized that he was alone because he had failed to heal himself. Xiao Meng recognized that they were approaching the heart of the issue. He considered ending the conversation but posed one final question: did Prince Cheon really believe someone incapable of healing through meditation could recover from internal damage in a short time? He admitted it was possible, but reiterated that if Prince Cheon wanted to progress to the next stage, he would absolutely need to learn Nigong. Prince Cheon then brought up something he had heard. That passing the first test would grant him access to the medicine ball and the first floor of the academy's library. Xiao Meng laughed, remarking that the redhead must have conveniently left out something important. When Cheon demanded to know what it was, Xiao Meng explained that access to the academy's library wasn't granted freely. Students were only permitted to enter after passing another test. He asked if Cheon had assumed he could just browse all the significant books at his leisure, emphasizing the strict security measures in place. Xiao Meng added that there was a 2-hour time limit on the first floor. Prince Cheon was surprised by this restriction, likening it to climbing one mountain only to encounter another. Siab Meng explained further, more time was granted as one ascended to the higher floors, but writing down any content was strictly forbidden. Everything had to be memorized before leaving. Memorizing just 2 books, he said, was considered an accomplishment. Prince Cheon reflected that, under normal circumstances, this restriction would be limiting. However, thanks to his Nano Machine's scanning capabilities, he could potentially absorb the contents of not just 1 or 2, but hundreds of books in 2 hours. Siab Meng warned that without Nigong, the 4 years at the Demonic Academy would be extremely grueling for Cheon. Cheon pondered whether Siab Meng was suggesting that he was different from the other students. He realized that unlike most cadets, who entered the academy having already trained in their clan's martial arts, he possessed neither martial arts skills nor Nigong. Considering the growing threat from the 6 clans, Cheon wondered if he truly needed to become Siab Meng's student. He glanced at a sheet of paper lying beside him and asked if it was related to the breath of Nigong. Siab Meng chuckled and confirmed that it was. He then promised that if Cheon accepted him as his teacher, he would begin instructing him in the breath of Nigong immediately. Cheon considered whether Siab Meng genuinely wanted him as a disciple but recognized the necessity of having at least one ally. This, he thought, was a rare opportunity, one that could help him obtain the breath of Nigong, which had previously been off-limits due to his oath to the 6 clans. Determined, Prince Cheon rose and bowed before Siab Meng, formally requesting to become his student. He acknowledged the tradition requiring a student to bow twice to their teacher. However, Siab Meng stopped him, stating that someone with the Cheon bloodline should bow only to the Lord himself. Siab Meng advised Cheon to rest for the remainder of the day. He stressed the importance of memorizing and internalizing the principles of the breath of Nigong before his next visit. Turning to Dr. Zhang, he informed him that he would be leaving and entrusted the care of his new student to the doctor, patting him on the shoulder. Dr. Zhang observed Siab Meng leaving with a grin. He then turned to Cheon and asked if he was feeling all right, commenting that Siab Meng must have taken a liking to him. He congratulated Cheon on becoming his student and noted that he appeared pale and clearly struggled due to internal injuries. Dr. Zhang assured him he would return shortly with acupuncture tools and asked for his patience. Prince Cheon agreed, quietly reflecting on the many opportunities he had received, the Nano Machine, Siab Meng's support, and the protection once provided by his mother and guard Zhang. Amidst numerous adversaries, he was finally beginning to gain allies. The scene then shifted to the Demonic Academy's practice field, where students were gathered and focused on healing themselves. Senior martial artist Ho Jin Chang arrived and knelt before Li Hua, announcing that he was there to report the results of the first test, including the cadet who had been taken to the infirmary. The total number of those who passed was 415. Li Hua noted that this was 200 fewer than the number who passed the first test 10 years earlier. He remarked that Elder Hang's overwhelming energy waves had clearly affected the outcome. He added that many who failed likely felt it was unfair. One disgruntled student stepped forward, arguing that he had not lost consciousness and questioned why he was being expelled merely because bubbles had come out of his mouth. He called it unjust. One instructor asked the student if he truly didn't understand the situation, while another questioned whether he believed he could avoid a life of service or farming. The student was incredulous, wondering how he was expected to live such a life. Another instructor commented that the student clearly couldn't accept the results. In agreement, yet another concluded that there was no choice but to remove such rebels from the academy. Using his skill, the instructor forcibly expelled the student. Ho Jin Chang observed the incident and remarked that those standing at the forefront clearly possessed great abilities, and the expelled students would never be able to compete with them. He added that their stubbornness prevented them from learning anything from the experience. Li Hua expressed sympathy, admitting that if he were in their position, he might feel the same way. He explained that the intensity of the test had been raised specifically because of Cadet 7. It wasn't merely a matter of luck or skill, it was fate. Ho Jin Chang noted that among those who passed, many were exceptionally talented. Li Hua asked if Ho Jin Chang truly believed that, pointing out that most were still meditating to recover from internal injuries. He further mentioned that 8 candidates from the upper clans and the 6 clans had succeeded with apparent ease. These individuals, he said, were operating on an entirely different level. Li Hua reflected that to endure Elder Hang's energy waves without injury, one would need to have cultivated Nigong for hundreds of years. As he scanned the field, he noticed two cadets standing motionless, Cheon Muyun from the Dark Clan and Cheon Yuchan from the Blade Clan. He considered the rumors that the true battle would be fought between those two clans. Chuckling to himself, Li Hua found it all quite fascinating.